very fast over some rather complicated concepts. We don't have very much time. What I attempted to do here, I was trying to unify anti-aging medicine and basically physics and theories of physics. So the laws of physics should be part of the laws that govern biological functions, because we are part of what physics consists of. And the main forces, universal forces, is gravity, that it has very high range, but it's very, very low. And you'll see the difference. Electromagnetism, which is extremely, extremely powerful, but it has also very long range and much more powerful than gravity. The strong nuclear force and the weak force are forces that are only with microscopic mechanisms. And this is how they basically compare. Strong force is very powerful but very small range, only in microscopic mechanisms, in nuclear mechanisms. Electromagnetic force is very high range and extremely powerful. Weak force is again for microscopic mechanisms, and gravity is the lowest, actually, very, very, very weak when compared to all of these other forces. As you can see, is 1 over all of these zeros, which is very strange because we always think that gravity is a very powerful force. It's actually not. So Einstein's general relativity theory and quantum mechanics were in contradiction. And there came string theory and tried to unify both theories to make a unified theory of physics, which is what I wanted to present, because this is what should be underlying the biological mechanisms. So a very interesting phenomenon in quantum mechanics is when two electrons, they have like a relationship, even though they're in very, very distant places. So if one electron is spinning down, the other one spins up. And as soon as you observe the first electron spinning up, the second electron is spinning down. It's very strange, and it's called entanglement. Einstein called it spooky. And it is spooky. It doesn't make very much sense. So how is that relevant to our bodies? There is a lot of research. It primarily came from Cambridge University in England, and it was based on the work of a Japanese investigator and scientist who migrated in the UK. And he conducted a series of experiments showing that cells can communicate without any agent being in between them. They actually communicate through ATP. The only thing that you see is energy, nothing else. And what you see in more recent research is you saw that cells communicate through physical barriers without any physical contact. So it's not hormones, it's not neurotransmitters, there's nothing that's there to connect them. And yet when one cell bends, you can see another cell in a very high distance bending as well. That is entanglement. That is a relationship that has happened without basically connection. It's a wireless connection. It's what radio frequency is, the radio waves we were talking about is what neurofrequency is all about, that type of thing, but only in microscopic mechanisms. Now, there is also, the way you see that is because they emit a proton, a photon. So you see the two cells bending, and there is a photon that is emitted by those two cells. And this is the experiment that shows the photons emitted by different cells as they are communicating from the distance. Very strange thing. So string theory, what string theory is, it basically says that everything consists from tiny strings of energy that nobody has seen. It's proven mathematically. So when a string vibrates in one way, like it plays one note, like an instrument that plays one note, it creates an electron. When it vibrates a different way, it creates a proton. When it vibrates another way, it creates a quark, which is what protons consist of, and so on and so forth. So everything in our bodies, this room, the universe, consists of tiny strings that vibrate. And this is what creates everything, basically. This is the theory of the string theory. That has been proven mathematically. So we are composed of atoms. Well, the atoms are also composed of protons and electrons. The protons are composed of quarks, and all these are composed of different kind of vibrations of strings, which are energy loops or energy, basically, strings, the two types of strings. Now, so if we could master, of course, the rhythm of the strings, we could explain all matter and all forces of nature, from quantum physics phenomena to the mysteries of our bodies at the molecular level. So this is just a concept, and we are working towards that. We do need more research, obviously, on this in this area. But the research has to understand biology as a unified area with physics and other disciplines, not just in itself. So how is string theory relevant to our bodies? Again, Tashakik and his colleagues demonstrated that how vibrations occur in the cochlea in response to sounds that are transplanting the electrical signals that the brain can interpret. So the brain can interpret these things. And another investigator, Kerr et al., 2008, showed that resonant signals resulted in rapid cell contraction at the subsequent cell spreading as observed by phase contact microscopy. Now, different cells resonate with different frequencies, and that's measured in hertz. And this is an example of different frequencies. Obviously, I don't have enough space or enough time to give all different cells, but every cell has different frequencies. This the erythrocytes, the blood cells, and this is basically the frequencies that resonate in hertz, and so on and so forth. And of course, all that is happening at the same time, which makes things like a musical composition, pretty much. So let's talk about time reversal, which is what we all want to know about. The ultimate goal of anti-aging is time reversal. It's not just to fill ourselves with fillers, but to really make ourselves look younger. So Einstein postulated that there is no such flow, that time doesn't flow. This is what he said. He said time doesn't flow. You can go back and forth like you go in the dimension of left to right and up and down. This has two dimensions. There is the time dimension. Then you can also go back and forth, but that's not true. We cannot really do that. We don't really go back and forth in time. We can only go one direction. We only go forward. However, when you look at microscopic mechanisms, time reversal is very possible. So look, for example, at free radicals. What is a free radical? It's just missing an electron. Once you give the free radical its electron, it turns back into a stable molecule. And time reversal mechanisms are seen in how ATP and AMP are created. So it goes from AMP, that's 1-phosphate, to ADP, 2-phosphates, to ATP, 3-phosphates, and back to ADP, 2-phosphates, and it keeps going in this circle. And it's like a really time reversal mechanism. So if it goes clockwise, it produces ATP. When it goes anti-clockwise, it produces ADP. Very much just like the electrons that we're talking about, that they spin up or they spin down. GAP, G proteins are the exact same thing. So GAP becomes GDP, which becomes GTP, and so on and so forth. Now, why is it that microscopic mechanisms can go back and forth? So they confirm Einstein's theory. But we cannot go back in time. We don't know anybody who went back in time to date. The reason why is the second law of thermodynamics, increasing disorganization. As we are so complex, so as we can only stay in a state of rigidity. In other words, we have created ourselves, and we can only continue in the way we were. If we went back in time, we would risk great disorganization. So all the movies that you see with time, going back to time, it cannot happen. It doesn't work like that, because the disorganization would be so massive, we would just lose ourselves. We would dissolve into tiny little pieces, and we would not be ourselves anymore. So as complexity increases, the electron's flexibility, it's forever lost. The electron can spin back and forth, but we cannot do that. So the solution to this in anti-aging medicine should be if we focus on microscopic cellular time reversal mechanisms. For example, at energies below thermal noise, the electron can amplify ion gates. And what is energies below thermal noise? It's like that. Look at how low is the voltage. Extremely, extremely low. Look at the voltage. It's tiny.
2 minutes.
Yes. How can we target time reversal microscopic mechanism? By resonating their frequencies. Remember, the cells have frequencies. So resonance amplifies the signals, like two waves turn into a bigger wave. Resonance amplifies the signal. When a specific frequency introduced from outside our bodies resonates an inside frequency, then it amplifies it. And what is aging? Aging is a breakdown of communications. What you see here is that aging is a reduction of signals. There's a lot of studies like that. This is just a study on T cells, but there's several studies where you can see that as the cell ages, communication is decreased. So what is the state of art in technology? We do clinical studies. They are very unstable and they have a lot of flaws because basically individual differences. There are some empirical studies that nobody does them anymore. They're very time consuming. And of course, research in experimental studies is always full of flaws because of validity reliability issues. So we have difficulties in exploring as well. So how to advance in something that concerns all of us, anti-aging? We need more research on healthy aging adults. How do they do it? We need to work together instead of against each other, which happens a lot in our disciplines. Rigidity fosters stability and security, but it blocks the development of science. And what makes sense is not always the truth. It's phenomenology. Quantum physics doesn't make sense. So this is our effort to kind of utilize extremely low frequencies to produce a change in cosmetics. And that's what we're dealing with. But some doctors have used it for wounds and also for psoriasis, and they have done very serious progress. And this is another psoriasis study. This is a study on a diabetic wound, and this is 1 year later. It never recurred, which is quite remarkable. That's another study. That's a traumatized hand by a car accident. Now, in conclusion, the arrow time can only go forward for complex mechanisms. It cannot go back and forth. So if we are in anti-aging medicine, we have to focus on molecular mechanisms, because that's where time reversal can occur. And how do we focus that? The only way we can do it is what strings are doing. They're producing vibrations and frequencies. So why don't we just focus on these frequencies of these elements and try to reinforce them, try to increase them? So progress in anti-aging is possible if we utilize tiny energies in specific frequencies to resonate naturally occurring frequencies in our bodies that can reinstate the biological functions. Because, why? Because they reinstate communications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for this incredible, inspiring presentation. And I give the word to